Let's change tack and talk about esports. It is a surging industry, expected to reach a $2 billion market cap by 2024. But where is the investor opportunity in all of that? Well, Clayton Larcombe from P.A.C. Capital is in the studio with me to tell us now. Clayton, welcome to AusBiz.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's been an eventful last couple of weeks since we spoke to you. Tell us some of the highlights from that period.
Yeah, it sure has. And over the last 2 weeks, I came on here to talk about PickleBet, which is a startup business, and we had Nicholas Heaney on Startup Daily during the week to speak about that. And we had the assumption to raise $4 million to expand our business internationally, and we're pretty close to closing that. And that's been fantastic with some names that we'll disclose when we can. But the industry has exploded, as you've seen. We saw Microsoft during the week make a $7.5 billion acquisition of a gaming media company, the biggest to date. Even the gaming, not just gaming, but the whole wagering sector, you've seen PointsBet. It finished off a $350 million raise. William Hill got bought for $7.2 million by Caesars during the week. The whole sector is becoming, with more people at home, the whole sector is growing. But esports, we're seeing just more and more growth and talk about it, and I think Australians really understanding it a lot more. You know?
And a lot of acquisitions rather than organic growth. So we're seeing the big players rather than really develop out their own organic businesses, they're looking to acquire. Microsoft's a great example.
Exactly, and that's, last week I spoke about, I actually just saw Van Eck then, about an ETF they just opened up, ESPO. Interesting ETF, large caps around the world, 25 names. Companies like Tencent, who have to have 50% of their revenue from gaming, those companies are, and I wasn't aware that Tencent's revenue was from gaming, 50%, and such a huge business. There is a lot of acquisitions around the world because people are seeing this, like Microsoft, as I said, but there's no real organic players. Like, we're seeing a lot of gaming companies and betting companies. Nothing is esports pure driven, which is where we see PickleBet being a different sector. We're in talks with companies that are looking to maybe acquire us and things like that, but we're not ready for that yet. And we see opportunity everywhere.
Tell us more about this ESPO
ETF. Yeah, sure. So I spoke about this a few weeks ago on here, and we started to add this to portfolios, about 2 to 3% across the board. And obviously, esports is a sector I'm pretty interested in. So it's a really interesting ETF. It's not for everyone, and this is not. And why I say that is, at P.A.C. Capital, where we have very tight benchmarks around what we can do and not, and very benchmark orientated. But these strategies, such as ESPO, HAC's another one, a beta shares ETF that's more of a cybersecurity. These small, interesting ETFs that we can take a calculated risk with for a small percentage of portfolios is where
very niche,
and where we create alpha and why our performance is being so good. And why I like esports and in that sector, as I said, we don't do anything that is a small cap sort of stocks. We have a combination of ASX top 50 ETFs and some managed funds. That's how our portfolios make up. Esports fitted beautifully in the ESPO, the Van Eck. It's got 25 names, top 25. They have to have a market cap of more than $1 billion.
Okay.
50% of the revenue has to come from gaming. So Nintendo, Sony won't get into it because it's about 20% of the revenue. Tencent gets into it, so it's insane. So it's a sector that we see so much growth in, and the ETF's been great for us. We added it last 2 weeks ago when I was in here, and it's up. It's tracking as we performed, up about 2.5%.
So clearly, a lot of big businesses can see the opportunity in esports. How are consumers reacting to it, both in Australia and globally?
Consumers,
it's sort of in terms of adoption of esports.
Yeah, I think Australia's a bit further behind.
Are they?
Yeah, definitely. I've felt that over the last few years since I started to really look into this sector. It's just not something that we are really aware of how big it is.
Okay.
I spoke about this last time on here, that it came to my attention when a young gamer called Booger, he won the Fortnite World Cup in 2019. He won $3 million in prize money. Tiger Woods won the Augusta Masters that year, and he won $2 million. So I was like, this is bigger than what I knew. And so I think that 70% of gaming comes from Asia. So that's where the main driver is. In America, I went to LA before the COVID lockdown, and in a lot of the bars there and sporting, because they're obviously heavily into sport, a lot of the screens are obviously the traditional sports, ice hockey and
baseball.
and baseball, and then there is a section where there is gaming screens of live games that are going on, with whether it's FIFA, Manchester United games, like NBA games online that are virtual games. So that's sort of highlight to me. And I think Australia's a bit further behind that curve, which is why we're starting to get that undercut now. And let's face it, Australians we're the fifth biggest betting nation in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
That's I'm a bit surprised.
Yeah.
Well, also, I was wondering whether COVID's made a bit of a difference. A lot of people with a lot more time on their hands at home.
It sure has. And I think that got highlighted by Formula One, for example. A lot of, and LeBron James, a lot of these key athletes, when sports got sort of closed during COVID, they got into a simulation style and competed against themselves in a Formula One competition. And this highlighted to people, tell me about this esports virtual gaming.
Right.
And those key traditional sports stars really highlighted that industry for us. And even on the Manchester United website, you'll log in there and there's a specific section for their esports team. And they'll club them out the tunnel each week. Like,
fascinating.
It's bigger than,
so a merging of the real and the virtual.
It sure is. And they're getting paid not as big as the real players, but really good, obviously. It inspires a lot of kids. A lot of kids, for me, I'm never going to be LeBron James. Okay. I'm never going to be 7 foot. But I think they're a lot of relatable characters for people. And people go, oh, well, I can race that car, or I can be that online. And it's a market where we see a bigger audience.
And tell me, what are we keeping our eyes on now? Like, is all that excitement of the last couple of weeks just a one-off frenzy of activity, or do we expect anything in the weeks ahead?
Look, I think esports is always just it's snowballing to be more of an exciting area. And for the PickleBet side, I think once that raise gets done, then we go into Asia, and we'll probably be looking to list in 12 to 18 months. And some key brokers that are on this show a lot. Who we're deciding where to go with that, and it's been a fantastic journey to see that evolve. But we want to get back to doing the core of what I do, and that's the really defensive, balanced and growth portfolios for P.A.C. Capital. But these strategies, the esports, cyber security, little small ones, are always going to be at the pivotal point of our research. And we have a pretty high esteemed investment committee that have to review our positions monthly when we meet, and just to be very clear, these are small new niche strategies that we talk about on this show for this small period, but it's what helps us create a difference. It creates a way that we can be active and different, react quickly, but also obviously sticking to the boundaries of our clients' mandates.
And just quickly before you go, esports, when you look at it for investment purposes, you sort of back the whole industry to keep growing, but there are certain highlights within the industry. Is that fair, or it's more of alpha plays?
I think that it's opened my eyes to this. Even as I've started years of working into it, researching into it, just how big it's going. Even for the acquisition during the week of Microsoft, from Tencent to these companies that are a part of our portfolios, like they always have been, and I didn't really associate gaming with it, and I see that is just going to be a driver as people become online more, people at home more. The surgence of people are not going to 100,000 people to stadiums anymore. That's just the way.
Who knows when they'll come back?
Exactly, and then you've got the sponsorship and the money going into it. I was on Twitch the other night, a young gentleman playing a sport there, and he had a few advertising banners around him, and there were 18 million people watching him play.
That's incredible.
I almost.
That's absolutely incredible.
And I was like, so you see how important those are to watch a Red Bull sign behind me. It wasn't Red Bull, but it was advertising around, and it's a huge amount of money going to it.
Absolutely incredible. Well, Clayton, it's been a joy to have you on the program. Thank
Thanks
you so
a lot.
much for telling us about esports. We look
Thanks
forward
very
to your
much.
next update.
Thanks very much.